educating me right now.
So this is where the foot traffic is over there along El Prado. They want buskers away from the public. You know that American apple pie that Miss Campbell said that we are? Well, this is what they think of the apple pie. They want it hidden out of the sight of the public.
If I set up here, I have to be within the corners of it. So 8 by 8.
Let me give you. I already gave you the coordinate, the QR code, and also the website.
Right. But I'm asking right now, like this is an 8 by 8. Right?
On that website, if you look at this section, it'll have the measurements of each site on the legend, right? So this is 4 by 8 at this location. And then number 10 is 8 by 8. So 9 and 10 are 8 by 8. So here we are at, oh actually we're at the fountain. But anyways, 9 and 10 are 8 by 8. Other spots have 4 by 4. So it's kind of like up to the individual to do their own research about the areas that they want to set up.
I think it's 10 by 10.
I'd have to look through this to see the sizes, but basically what will be enforced is the distances that these are already marked out of those distances. So if you find a blue square and you go bigger than it, then you're not meeting the...
Is this an 8 by 8?
If this, yeah, this is probably an 8 by 8.
There are no 10 by 10s, Eric. They wrote all of us that have anything bigger than 8 by 8 out of the ordinance.
Yeah. Even knowing that that's...
Even knowing that there are a lot of religious and political groups that are going to end up suing them over it. They did it anyway.
Yeah. So the expressive activities include religious tents as well?
It basically includes, and that's where, like I was saying, what I want to do is provide the EA document to you if you want to look through it. That's what you need to do. But it's kind of like, I want to provide the resources to people for them to educate themselves.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to like going, hey, will you read me this whole document?
Well, you said you're here to educate me.
I'm here to educate you.
So that's why I'd rather speak to you about this.
So that's the information that I'm going to provide you is literally the ordinance. And if you want to read the EA, I can provide that to you.
Have you read the document?
I have, yes.
Yes. Okay, then you know that. Have you educated yourself on First Amendment rights?
I think what you guys are both upset about, right, is the ordinance has been developed. You guys have had your voices. My job is just to be the enforcement of those ordinances.
I understand what your job is, sir,
Yes.
but you also have a job to protect the state and the federal Constitution.
Okay.
And these laws step over constitutional rights because you wouldn't grab every single person here and tell them that they have to be in the blue brackets when they want to speak, when they want to enjoy themselves while they're sitting over there on the park. And so you cannot do that to us because that violates the 14th Amendment.
Okay.
And so you as an officer of the law are obligated to follow federal and state law even if city law tells you otherwise. And so when you do other than your obligations, you are actually depriving rights under color of law and now stepping into federal crime territory. And I'm only telling you this because I want you to be educated.
Well, thank you.
You should really look this stuff up.
Do you have any other questions for me?
Yeah, I was asking you a question. So, do these spaces also apply to religious tents?
So let me give you the ordinance. And then,
because often like a Jesus tent will have like 2 tents side by side, or it's like 20 feet wide. Would you enforce them as well? Or is it different if it's art versus...
No, all of the expressive activity is covered in the same ordinance, which I'm going to give to you right now.
That includes protesters too. So when the Ukrainians come through with their giant protests, they have to be in these spaces too.
Well, he's right in a sense. Protesting is different than impromptu.
It's not different. It's under the same law.
According to the ordinance, right? So what I'm trying to do is provide, like, you guys are entitled to do whatever research outside of that. All I'm here doing is providing information from the city as a public officer. So I understand you have differences and of opinions, and you've had run-ins with people.
How long have you been a ranger?
You probably dislike, but nobody really likes enforcement when you're on the receiving end.
When you're violating rights, of course not. When someone else is doing something that's wrong, you know, that's different.
Here is the ordinance for expressive activity.
Are you educating as well today, or just along for the ride?
I'm the citation.
Okay. Are you guys the same rank, or is he above you? Is that why you speak with?
We're all park rangers now.
And who do we file a formal complaint to when we file a complaint formally?
Well, for what?
If we feel like we're being harassed or rights are being violated, because I don't really trust the park ranger system where it's all park rangers ruling over park rangers.
Yeah, man, it's the same for public officers. So if you feel like there's an issue, you can complain to supervisors, or if you want to do legal action when you go to courts, that's basically the time to.
But there's no citizens review of park rangers like there is for police?
We have CACs, we have boards and stuff where people can come and weigh their input, but that's usually for independent parks, and the chief park ranger would probably be the one that oversees
So the guy that throws stuff in file 13. Okay, great.
I mean,
I've done complaints to him, and I've done public records requests to get those complaints, and they didn't show up in the public records request, which shows that he's just throwing them in the garbage.
Like I said, man, you're talking about things that are really kind of meant for my supervisors. I'm just here to do education and provide enforcement. That's my job.
It's the problem, though, is it's always the disconnect.
How can you educate if you're not educated on the actual laws?
Sorry, say that again?
I said that's the problem, is always the disconnect of, oh, I'm just doing what I'm told, but then, like, how do I have the input
That's
into...
Well, that's what city council is for. So
we've done that a lot, though.
and so there's a lot of constituents for each council member, and usually how they weigh their votes is
it's basically on who has money.
Basically the majority rules normally most of the time in politics. So if you have a lot of people that are getting upset about dogs being off leash, then guess what? We're here enforcing dogs off leash. If that's passed into an ordinance, which that's kind of how it came to be, right? So
Looking at the release.
I am giving you the ordinance right now.
And you know, when you say that everyone else is above you on this stuff, that doesn't remove you from the ambit of learning about the laws and what you're obligated to do.
Oh, I would agree with you. I learn every day.
Okay.
There's a lot of, I don't like to put myself at a cap. If you put a ceiling on yourself, then there's no.
I appreciate you actually conversing with me too, because other rangers play these stupid childish games.
To be fair, a lot of people don't like being in the public eye.
Then why are they wearing the uniform?
And well, it's also kind of one of those things where the enforcement officers aren't required to have a dialogue to do their job. I like to be fair, and my process is to get people to a level of understanding so that they are motivated to do it themselves rather than because someone tells them to. And that's where I am right now. It's like if you don't want to work with the ordinance, then there's enforcement. And if you
So what is the actual enforcement if we don't work with the ordinance?
It depends on where you fall, if you're expressive activity or if you're sidewalk thing.
Expressive activity.
Okay, let me go through the expressive activity.
Are y'all going to still what I basically want to know is, are y'all still going to hand us criminal citations like y'all have been doing? Or is it going to be administration citations like you're giving the other people?
It depends on what laws are being infringed upon, right? So if there's somebody who's blocking a fire escape and they refuse to move, it doesn't matter what you are, that could be a criminal citation, which is a notice to appear in court.
Not being in a bracket.
That's going to all fall under administrative.
So, in other words, we won't go to jail if we don't pay the tickets.
Correct. Well, what
That's what I needed to hear.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily, the consequence isn't necessarily jail. However, there are laws in effect where if you refuse to comply with lawful orders of park rangers, that goes into different territories. So,
But a lawful order from a park ranger that's stepping over a lawful law
and here's
would not be a lawful order.
And here's what I would say about that, right? If one of us does something wrong, where we infringe upon your rights, or someone's not doing their best to uphold the Constitution and the laws, the time to fight that isn't with the people on the street in Kangaroo Court. The time to fight that is in the actual courts with a judge.
So the lower courts that actually do what the city tells them to rather than look into the
And
actual
then guess
stuff.
what? Then there's
Yeah, what you're saying is you've got to keep cranking out money to fight this because there is no system to fight it without money. And that's total fucking bullshit.
well, I mean, that's how we.
Okay, well, when you guys get your pensions taken, know that you were educated and that y'all thought that this was not the place to handle it. And instead of handling it when you could, later on when you're crying about how you don't have a pension anymore, know that you were also awarded the opportunity to educate yourself and where all this is wrong.
Okay.
And so does your whole department. They're doing what the city tells them to because some rich guy in La Jolla doesn't like buskers. I know because I've been to all the meetings. They made all kinds of promises to us and then reneged them after that rich guy came up.
And like I said, you're upset at the enforcement level, where really all of the political happenings.
But you know what? So in 1945, after World War II ended, there was a lead Nazi, and he wrote in a letter and he says, well, I shouldn't be convicted or hung for killing all those people because I was doing what I was told. Doing what I'm told is not an excuse. It did not fly then. It will not fly now.
Okay. And like I
We were
said,
given a lot of citations by Ranger Z, like a lot of harassment for a couple of years, until eventually we were fighting him in court, and then he had a lawsuit against William for harassing him, kind of the talk calling the head of black, and because of that, like Ranger Z was relocated to another area. He wasn't allowed to talk to us anymore. The past 3 months, Rangers haven't been allowed to talk to us. So this is like a repeated cycle I've been through like for 13 years here at the park, where there's just new rules, being harassed. It's like we just feel like we're not wanted here at all. We're always relegated to very small areas that don't allow enough space for people to, beyond like a handful of people to actually be able to express their First Amendment rights. And it just feels like, why are we treated so poorly and treated like criminals for doing something that brings so much joy? Like people from all over the world come here to the park to see like all the buskers, because that's not something you see everywhere. And it just feels like that's just not wanted here at the park. And even if it's like, well, that's the current law, that's the code you're enforcing, there still has to be like, I would hope that you'd be able to take a step back from that and see you're not actually making the park a better place by enforcing these codes. You're actually just taking away from the joy and the vibrancy of the park. You're taking away from why people come here to the park. And it's just extremely frustrating to just be constantly treated like criminals for bringing more joy to the park than rangers do. Especially when it's just like this recurring battle of peaceful people being treated like we're the criminals.
While you're letting crime go rampant throughout the entire park. While the park is moldy and full of trash and garbage, y'all have more resources to deal with us expressing our First Amendment rights than what you do to deal with the real problems of the park. And that's going to backfire. And I want you to inform everyone at your office that there will be lawsuits this year. And if we have to, we'll individually sue every ranger at a time until this stops.
Okay.
Because we've had enough. We've gone to the city.
I mean, you know, like I said, you know what to do
Yeah.
in order to make these changes, right? So if you're able to successfully do those things, guess what? Enforcement stops. We all have the job to do, and a lot of people have varying opinions. And like I said, my job as a public official is.
Well, I'd look up deprivation of rights under color of law because I can put you in prison for up to a year and give you a $10,000 fine.
So, like I said, all the things that I'm enforcing, and this is where I like to hopefully say that we have respect enough for each other that we can agree to disagree.
So you're enforcing a law that goes against state and federal law, which is deprivation of rights under color of law.
Like I said, I'm not here to do the opinions of back and forth of whatever. I'm here to
But this isn't an opinion, this is written law. Like if you go look it up, you'll find everything I'm telling you is true. Everything in this ordinance is, hang on, everything in this ordinance is there because of me. Everything with the laws and stuff. And then they misquoted some of the laws, and that's why the ordinance is fucked up. The previous ordinance, they rolled out constitutionally vague law, unconstitutionally vague law, and that's why everything got fucked up. Every single time I've been right, they have tried to use this stuff against me in retaliation. And when you guys start enforcing this ordinance, you guys are going to be held just as liable as the members up top. Now, do you want to get paid to enforce something that is illegal? If so, you should go around and start killing people because, you know, you're already starting the tactics of a Nazi. Might as well do the rest of them. You know? But if you want to step within the rights of the legal law, then you've got to pay attention to state and federal laws, not just city.
So I understand you think you're doing the right thing.
And this is where you stand and what I'm doing, you guys aren't gonna like it. I said we all know that. And I'm going to do my job, which is enforce the ordinances as they're written by city council.
Well, enforce the ordinances and we'll let the courts find out. And if you're one of them that writes tickets, you will be sued.
And that's what I'm saying. We just have to all follow the rules. And if we don't follow the rules, then we are held accountable. And if the rules are found unconstitutional, then there's a way to go about that. I'm going to enforce the ordinance as it's written. So that
Do you get in trouble if you see someone breaking the rules and you don't enforce it? Or is it still up to you whether you choose to enforce it?
It's up to them according to their rule book.
It's kind of a situation where we would have to weigh a lot of options. Like, is there safety, or is it going to be, because what we're equipped with and what our training is different than it would be a lot of other areas, like say code enforcement, or say like police SWAT team, right? So there's a lot of different agencies that we would contact to respond to different things. Like let's say somebody hurts themselves.